Good evening and welcome to Mechanics of the Fourth Wall with me, Nathan Oakley, and Antonio Subirats. This show has been pushed back by about 3/4 of an hour because of the massive amount of notes that Antonio and myself have been making, so that we can make the point of this show relatively coherent in the usual Mechanics of the Fourth Wall couple of hours that we get when we do these shows. Now, most people who are watching this show will appreciate that we have experienced a massive paradigm shift, not just in terms of the shape of the Earth that we live on, but in terms of massive other items that we will list in this show. I'm hoping that Antonio is going to kick off with his, summary about what we're going to talk about tonight. Maybe you want to tell us what your thoughts are, Antonio.
Well, my thoughts are that we should be candid with the viewers and tell them that we're cancelling this hangout because we've made them wait too long. So thanks, everyone. Bye. No, okay, I'm joking.
Thanks for being here. I've been Nathan Oakley.
And I've been Antonio Subirats. So, oh man, can you imagine if at the end of it, the YouTube people cut that, threw in the most incoherent piece of what we do, and just had that at the start and end?
That sounds like a normal show we do. Is that what you're trying to describe?
So this is what I'm thinking. Right now we're at a point of paradigm shift. We have two paradigms that are living side by side. We have the old paradigm of the globe Earth, and we have the new paradigm of the flat Earth. The new paradigm turns out to be a much older paradigm than the globe, but the arriving at a new paradigm, the shifting of paradigms, is what we're discussing. So the paradigm that we're in right now, we're going to cover a whole series of things that are the paradigms that we're in now. So as flat earthers, and as globelings, we're living on the same Earth, and we're subject to many of the same strategies, many of the same structures, the same paradigms that are inserted into our experience of reality. And right now, one of the paradigms that we live under is this paradigm of spiritual war, of good versus evil, of finding some way of no longer having this good versus evil, this duality. And what we're really talking about when we as flat earthers discuss this spiritual war is we're talking about ending this spiritual war and finding peace, arriving at a point of peace. That would be a shift in the paradigm of continuous war mentality to a peaceful mentality. That would be a paradigm shift. But if we think about it, the actual idea that we're in a spiritual war of good versus evil, we've inherited. And that itself is a paradigm that's not justified, not as you gain knowledge, because that paradigm is just a flip coin of the globalist paradigm of wanting to escape. They want to escape. The sciences, the engineering, the hoarding of things are all to do with escaping from the morals of the chattel, or escaping this planet. Even we flat earthers are talking about escaping to the next pond, or breaking out of this pond. This idea of leaving, of escaping, is a false paradigm. We don't have to leave. And what we're going to discuss, the reasons why we see the world the way we see it, why the world is seen how it is seen by others. Some of those others are us 2-5 years ago. So we know that the world is seen this way. We're going to talk from experience. We're not just going to imagine how a Hindu might perceive the world. We're talking about experience, personal experience. So
just to boil it down in terms of, because you gave an analogy of looking at the paradigm being one side of the coin. So if we have it nice and simplistically put, we've got good on one side of the coin, evil on the other side of the coin. And when you go from one to the other, that is a paradigm shift. what we are saying is the coin isn't necessary. You can throw that coin away completely. You don't need the coin to decide that you have to be on this good versus evil paradigm. So shift all aside, you don't have to be caught up in the paradigm in the first place, I think is what you're trying to say, Antonio. Am I right?
Precisely. In fact, the paradigm that we as flat earthers and globelings also have been living under for hundreds, if not thousands of years, in fact, thousands of years, is a paradigm where things are normalized. So we have the normalization. This, just to give a quick explanation. So a country is in civil war, okay? And the food is not being delivered, people are not going to school, factories are not being attended to, and the government or the invading government, whoever, puts tanks in the city center, and those tanks normalize the situation. The situation in that country has been normalized. That there are tanks there is not normal, okay? It's just a term. And right now in the flat earth, abuse was something that was normal.
Before we started, I don't know if this was going to be part of your point for this point, but you listed off a few other words, and it might be useful while we go through this to actually use those other words. So I scribbled them down. So we've got unconsciousness or orthodoxy or natural. You know, these are all akin words to normalization, just so that people can kind of focus on other ideas that might be around the concepts that Antonio is trying to put around. I hope that's useful.
Yeah, it is, because so we had this normalization. It was normal for Patricia Steer to be attacked and for people to not say anything, and for some very few people to say something, but kind of meekly and quietly. That was a normal situation, and it's not normal, okay? People attacking other people needlessly. Now, let's remember, defending yourself is not the same as being attacked or as attacking. But let's put that to the side. The situation we had was one where it was normal for certain people to be abused and to receive abuse consistently and continuously. And this way of behaving is an unconscious way of behaving, which is what Nathan was talking about. The word normalization, we know where it comes from. It comes from things being normal. But Orwell described this as orthodoxy. So being unconscious is orthodoxy. So being unconscious is normal, the normal way to be.
To rewind this back to the original point. So normal would be to be in a state of mind that considers it normal or usual or any of those other words, to have a situation where you are striving towards peace and in a state of war. That's the standard, that's the normal. It's not normal. That's what we're trying to get across here. We'll edge our way towards that. But the standard, the accepted, the normal is that we are in a state of war and striving towards peace. Maybe you detail some of the introductions, Antonio. I don't know if I'm jumping right ahead here.
It's okay. What do you mean, some of the
shalom? And
yes, so I'll get to that. So we have this unconscious way of functioning, which has this appearance of being conscious merely because we're not sleeping in bed, okay? But being conscious does not mean not being sleeping in bed. We've seen people on stage hypnotized, doing all kinds of stuff, and they're not conscious of the things they're doing. They're not sleeping, they're awake, their eyes are open, they're hearing, they're responding to the real world, but they're not conscious. So we have this freedom of speech, this thing that people say unconsciously. I have freedom of speech and I have freedom of expression. It's like, you don't have the freedom to put poison into the well. You can think that you do, but you don't. Or if you want to look at another way, you do have the freedom to do that, as long as you do it at nighttime when nobody sees you. Because if you do it in the daytime when people do see you, the people who see you have the freedom to bash your brains in or to restrain you from getting to the well. So this is freedom of expression and freedom of language, freedom of speech. This idea that everybody counts just as much as everybody else, that's not true. That's a thoughtless thing to say. If we're facing a chasm and we're building a bridge, we need to build a bridge from one side to the other. Let's say there's a fire coming from behind and we can't fight it, and we need to get to the other side. We need the people at the chasm to be engineers and thinkers, the kind of people who have developed engineering methods, those kinds of people, and also the kind of people who are good at gathering the resources that will be fashioned into shape by the engineers and the people with the tools.
So what about the people who come along to the site and take photographs of the people and detail what they're wearing and how they're looking and what their social life is like after they finish their day of work? What about those people?
Those people are the equivalent to, in this chasm scenario, you have the engineers describing things to each other, discussing things, and you have these other people who elbow their way in and start criticizing what color socks the engineers are wearing. That's what this, I count as much as everyone else. No, you don't. Right now we live in a
But the people need to know. They need to know what style of high vis is in this season.
Yeah, so this is this unconscious way of living. So people who think that because they're a human being, their thoughts count for as much as somebody else's thoughts. This is this normalized view of the world. They are significant in the same way by virtue of being a Homo sapiens. Their significance is inherent. Now, the deeds are what creates further significance. So I don't want to hear from somebody who's really good at, I don't know, making up stories about fairies and rainbows if they want to contribute to the physical actions of building a bridge. This person, no, they can go and tell their story somewhere else. They're not needed and they're not required. That's the same as needed. They're not wanted.
So we almost titled this, didn't we? I might as well say it because we're a little bit into the show now, that we almost titled it, what was it? Some people just don't count. You know, we ended up titling it Back to Basics after a bit of back and forth for fear that it might be too controversial to title it that. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? There are certain people in, we keep saying it, we might as well just use it again, in the paradigm shift that we are currently experiencing that are quite literally surplus to requirements.
This is it. Now, surplus to requirement with the old mentality means, oh, that ends up with the term useless eater. It's like, that's with that normalized unconscious mentality. No, the so-called surplus eater or useless eater is indispensable in their small field of influence. That useless eater might be the person who provides the sustenance for their whole family. Your significance does not come from how other people see you continuously. Your significance comes from your deeds, the things you do. Your ideas are yours and yours alone. If you want to voice them and explain them to somebody else, fine. But if you want,
beautifully put, because you can then come back full circle to your analogy on this building site over a chasm with a fire behind you. You know, the guy who's there taking photographs and detailing what's happening, you know, he has every right to be there, but he's not going to help build the bridge. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but this is the thing. He also does not have every right to be there. How is he going to get there? He's getting there and somebody else can't get there who has something indispensable to contribute, because this person is there criticizing people's socks. Okay? The person is not required and does not have the right to be there. We have rights to do things. It's like, this is what comes from the mentality that arrives at 1984. The rights. you have the right to not be offended. It's like, no, you don't have that right.
So what are freedom of speech, or what is freedom of expression?
It's exactly that. You can say anything that you want, and you can do anything that you want, as long as you don't demand that people hear you and insist and expect people to act on what you're saying. And the same with what you do, as long as you don't expect people to appreciate what you do. Do what you do because of the ends that you see having any benefit to yourself or others, but don't expect everybody else to appreciate you having exercised your freedom of expression by graffitiing a wall. No, lots of people will not appreciate that. You will, and that's fair enough for you. But don't demand that people appreciate it, and don't try to exert your right that people appreciate it. This is what happens. Freedom of speech and expression, you can say anything you want, anywhere you want. But people around you have freedom of speech and expression too. And they also can say and do. So this idea that I have a bubble of protection around me and nobody better tamper with that, it's like, no, that's an illusion that you have.
But that illusion carries over much further when you've got a platform that is penetrating the consciousness of most of the people we're describing. So if you've got a platform like TV, as opposed to soapbox on the street corner, yeah, people don't have to listen, but most people are quite literally tuned into what is being said and presented on the TV. So those people are caught up in the paradigm, and they have no idea it even exists. As far as they're concerned, they're just part of the current reality, even though it's changed.
It's normal to watch TV. It's normal to...
Precisely.
Yeah, it's normal to know what's going on as you've had it presented to you by the media, by the mainstream news, by the alternative.
We should call it what it is, the propaganda, as opposed to the media, because that's all it is.
That's right. And what it's there for is to trap you. It's there to trap your consciousness, to keep it lulled into a state of bordering on fear, and you learn how to survive at that point, and you can ensure that you keep the ghosts away with special prayers or special pieces of paper that will make those ghosts go away if they come knocking on your door, you know. And having more will have other people see you as having the ability to keep the ghosts away, and all of it is illusion. It's a very coherent illusion. It's supported by everything else in the real normal world, but it's only when you start to really think whether or not your perception of those things is valid by being based on truth, or whether it is valid by being based on unquestioned beliefs.
So this is an example. We can use a nice NASA or ISS example. When people are picking apart the footage, they're part of the paradigm that the system that you are viewing hopes you will engage in. Even if you pick it apart, it's back to the good versus evil. You know, the evil is it's all fake, it's all rubbish. The good being it's all real, it's all exactly as the world is. Well, that again is another coin you can toss away when you appreciate that everything you've been presented with is from the propagandized machine, and you can turn your back on it. Once you've done that, you disengage from that paradigm. I'm certain that the system would be elated by a lot of the debunkers of NASA, because they just become part of the paradigm, which we're saying, toss it away. It's not necessary to be flipping between the two sides of that coin.
And this is what television and mainstream thought is there for. You see, television sets the narrative. There's also mainstream thought, the language, the things that are discussed, which are bled into from the mainstream narrative. That means basically the topic of the day. But if you bear in mind that TV is a weapon that's being used against the viewer, the television watcher, it's there for the viewer's consciousness. It's not there for the viewer's gratification or for the viewer's advantage.
Yeah, to put it another way, there is no good to come out of television. There is no knowledge, there's no wisdom, there's no nothing. It's just part of the paradigm.
And the reason people swallow it in the first place is that it has elements of pleasure. If it was anguish all of the time, then people would disengage with it. But it has elements of relief and pleasure, and those people watch it for those things. Whilst they're watching it for those things, the beautiful sceneries that you can watch on a TV program, you know, about moving abroad or whatever, for those things you receive all of this surreptitious, it's not good enough in your country, it's better in other countries, your life is not good enough as these people's lives who are building a home abroad or whatever it is.
And so, further to the narrative, you're being subjected subliminally in all of the advertising and all of the images on the actual programming that's presented. The symbiology is everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look. Now, that's not gone when you turn the TV off, unfortunately, because while you were talking, I was thinking, well, maybe we should do a short hangout, you know, an example, how to disengage from your TV, and then a quick shot of someone going up to it and turning it off. You know, the only problem with that is you are still subject to billboards, taxi cab advertising, you know, everywhere you look, there is the media, there is the propaganda, and we're sold the illusion of propaganda being a really obvious thing that's presented by, you know, people that were Nazis in times gone by. And in reality, every advert is propagandized. Therefore, all of the media is exactly that control system. It is that weapon being used against you. So it's difficult to disengage, and we could do an entire hangout about this, but in reality, we've got to this stage because of religion, not because of TV. We've come under fire for it. We've kind of, I don't know, shrugged our shoulders to it and gone, well, no, we are going to be discussing this. It's another paradigm. It's exactly the kind of thing you want to do when you go back to basics and realize that everything that seems to surround you in terms of ways of considering life has been presented to you with a narrative. It's been presented to you through a method and a structure, and that's always going to be up for analysis. The only problem with religion is, well, I don't know, maybe you can start with the problems. Away.
This is what I think, okay, and people can take everything that we say and consider it and see whether it's worthy of evaluation and testing, or can disregard it altogether. This is the freedom that you have. But let me put it this way.
Well, let me try. Religion is control of the spirituality, and it's done by writing things down. Is that a nice way of boiling it down?
Well, let me flesh it out this way, because I think it's a kind way of fleshing it out. Your family can be your greatest source of joy. Same with your friends. When a friend succeeds, the happiness that you feel, whether or not you had anything to do to help with that success, just by the fact that you see somebody you love succeed, it brings a source of joy. Same with your families, same with anybody that you love. They can also be the source of the greatest fear, dread, and pain. The same people, the same attachments. Now, religion is and was supposed to be your inner world, how you dealt with your everyday existence in terms of how you related to the challenges that befell you, the successes, the ability to help others, the ability to remove obstacles from yourself, from others. It was supposed to be an inner world thing. Now, it's valid for this. You can talk about this, you can describe it and try and pass on the tools of religion, which everybody understands are the same tools in all of the religions. This is what's agreed amongst the religions, that there are incredibly valuable tools. You can pass these tools on verbally, but when it was written down, it stopped being a tool and started being a weapon. And instead of being something that brought sustenance, it was something that brought poison. Now, we can see this by this very simple fact. The religions predominantly of the world right now, the largest bulk of religions are the Judeo-Christian religions, which came from the Middle East, which came from Egypt and Israel, Palestine. Palestine, remember, Palestine is where they came from. This is the area on the map, okay? Israel is this construct, but the area in terms of, you know, geography is Palestine. Now, the greeting in that area is either shalom or salam, which means peace. Now, to greet someone with the word peace sounds like it's quite lovely, but it presupposes enemy. It's based on enemies. If you're saying peace, you're saying not enemy, okay? And that's the term from the religions that were written down. Now let's compare that with this religion or the spirituality of people who did not write them down, okay?
Right, like who?
The Native Americans, okay? They did not write their religion down, okay? And where you have shalom or salam alaikum in the Middle East, the Algonquian tongue of the Ojibwe, the woodland elves, no, the woodland Indians of Canada and North America, their greeting, their equivalent to peace, literally means, I see your light. It's anin. I see your light. That's the greeting. It presupposes that there's darkness. Yes, nobody's going to deny that. It doesn't say darkness brings fear, but it also says, I see your light. Everybody has light in them. And that's what it's saying. I see your light. And the other person says, I see your light. We see under and by each other's light. It's the same light that lights up the world. We have the same light inside us, but that was not written down. So it was almost entirely destroyed by the ones who came with the weapons that were given to them by the religion. The tools that religion has, which are legitimate, which the anin, the greeting acknowledges, the light, the goodness in each other, those things that are legitimate are tools, okay? The religions written down with the orders are weapons for animosity, for enemy making, for enemy identifying.
And these weapons, though, they're required. It brings me nicely on to the next note, which was about people's fixation on security.
Yeah. So with the weapons versus tools, it's like, yes, you can have a tool called the screwdriver, and this will screw things. You can also stab someone with a screwdriver, but stabbing them doesn't mean that it will no longer help you screw in a screw, okay? You can't screw in a screw with a flail or a cat o' nine tails. You can't, okay? And there isn't an equivalent weapon that will help you do something where you can do the opposite of that. So destroy and also build. You can't build with a sword, you know? But the fixation, the reason for the poison in the written religions, which are promoted by propaganda, and religion aside, the propaganda that we have in the world, where we have this fixation on science, fixation on economy, on consumption, which is like the opposite of economy. To economize means to not waste, to minimize your outgoings. But that's not what economy is really about. It's about increasing and continuously expanding your growth of consumption.
Yeah, these wordings are a type of crazy making, aren't they? And it's interesting that you keep saying about poisoning and pouring poison in the well, because the type of people that do these sorts of behaviors, these crazy makings, are the toxic people. You know, leads nicely into them pouring poison into wells. But yeah, the toxic people of this world are the psychopathic people who we all know run the show.
That's it. So not only do we know these people run the show, but the reason they're running the show is fear. They run the show because they have command of fear. They can cause fear, but they also are subject to fear. The reason they command fear is because fear is the thing that's the greatest concern to them.
Yes, there was an interesting, I don't know what the, I think it was a mirror that Migmag put up recently. But the guy who was doing that documentary made a really interesting point, which was that the people who are in charge, or the people who are labelled in charge, let's say the puppets, and he gave a long list of presidents and prime ministers, he said those people are in a very similar state to the state that we find ourselves in, and you're labelling it fear, which is perfectly fine. But he's bang on. I would say not only very close, I would say exactly the same.
Yes, and you can. We all know what fear is. Let's call it something that's a little bit more physical. Anxiety.
Yeah, there was the guy, I think it was Johnson's and Johnson's. You passed me a documentary about the 1%ers, and it was a guy who ran pharmaceutical type company, and he was terrified of everything, worried that he would lose it all, his kids would mess up, he was just living in a perpetual state of terror, but he was, as far as to the onlooker, you'd think, well, you're on easy street, you've got nothing to worry about. And in reality, you can point that finger straight back at yourself and go, well, we're saying these people live in a conscious state similar to our own, and you could just say, rich guy, you've got nothing to worry about. Well, poor guy, you've got nothing to worry about. It's the same goes both ways.
Exactly. But if we assume that the elite live in a state of bliss because they're elites, we're hugely mistaken. If we think that they have reached a level of bliss by the most evil and nefarious of qualities, by drinking baby's blood, and it puts them into a state of, all of that is nonsense.
Yeah, complete and total rubbish.
But the idea that anxiety is, which is a necessary, we have that. We have the endocrine system. Our body has a whole series of glands made to function from anxiety. One of the things it does is it switches off large portions of the things about which you'd normally be aware. Okay, so dumb down, dull down, or dial down your consciousness. Okay, you have a tiger running towards you. Now, you've totally lost all your consciousness about what you're wearing, what people think of you, where you were going, how much food you've eaten, when you're going to eat next. All of that is gone, replaced with how fast and where can I climb. That's the only thing on your mind. All of the other things are peripheral. And this is why anxiety, stress, fear, all those things that come from the same point, that's why they're used. So you will not stop to think. You might think, do you know what? I would love to just sit and whittle every day, just whittle, to see to what extreme I can whittle, to see how magnificent and intricate and amazing I can make something through whittling. But I can't do that because my wife would leave me, because I wouldn't be providing for her, obviously. And then I wouldn't see my kids. Fear, stress, start speaking to you. And because you're hearing fear and stress, you become unconscious of the fact that your wife loves you. What your wife wants is your happiness. Your happiness makes her happy. Her happiness makes you happy. Your happiness combined makes your children happy. So your fear is directing you towards no longer thinking about your dream because of the possible fearful outcomes, and stops you from the realization that maybe you will talk to your wife about this, and she will be able to figure out of left field, out of somewhere that your male brain can't even see, how you can arrive at whittling. But if you have fear, you won't. So you will not only not think further about your dream because of the fear, but you will embrace your slavery, which is the job that you have, that you inherently don't want because it's stopping you from whittling. Now,
It's
this
part of the programming, it's to keep you focused on your security.
That's it. And this fear paradigm, which comes from the weapon of religion, let's bear in mind, we've said religion is an internal thing. It is a necessary thing for any conscious Homo sapiens, a way of investigating and assimilating the things that the world, that your existence presents to you. You might have a life where that a certain day has gone a certain way, and the dream at the end of that day brings you something for you to consider, to try to lead the way, to try to point something out to you that comes from somewhere that we know. Well, first of all, we know this place is designed, so we know that there's a designer, and that this designer is a conscious thing. But the way you deal with your life and your thoughts, you can talk about them, but when you write them down and tell other people that this is true and they should do so too, you've made it into a weapon of fear. Now let's remember, the fear of religion that is integral, absolutely necessary to the Judeo-Christian faith that we have, is this: God made everything almost exclusively to trip you up so that he could torture you forever, eternally, including making the most cunning trickster to mess you up, because that cunning trickster can come disguised as God. This is irrational, and it causes irrational fear.
Absolutely. And the opposite side of that, which is what we started off the show with, is the flip side, the atheist view, which is what you get from the television. So at a very base level, you will always be shown the fact that you live on a globe. If you're in Britain, you'll see it on the BBC ident almost every time. I don't know if it still is. I hope so. I hope this is still current. Hopefully the BBC ident still has a globe that spins round and says BBC One or whatever. But yeah, you're continually programmed with that at a very base level, along with the things we mentioned earlier, like subliminal programming, the sex cell, the death cell. These things work on, again, things we've touched on, the base level parts, the fight or flight part of your brain, the thing that anxiety is akin to, are worked on at a subliminal level on everything you watch. But moreover, you're continually bombarded with the idea that you are an insignificant nothing. It's the complete, it's the antithesis of what Antonio's just described, but the same level of fear and anxiety when you're caught up in that paradigm. And unfortunately, with Flat Earth, we seem to be in a paradigm where if you are a globe believer, you are a non-God believing person, and believing in everything coming out of nothing. But to believe in the flat earth must, for some, lead you down the route of looking at the spiritual path that the Bible has to offer, and all of the paradigms caught within that. And like we said at the top of the show, that coin can just be tossed to one side, and a lot of people have already done that. It's going to be braced against by the people who haven't.
Yes. So let's bear in mind, the conscious creator of everything, whatever it is, we can call it God for concision. Okay. Otherwise, we'll sit there saying, do you mean the great mystery? Do you mean the energetic forces? Do you mean whatever type of consciousness? Let's just call it God. Okay. God will present things to you through your dreams, through your life. God will engage with you. When you start engaging with, I'm going to call it existence. I'm going to say that God to me, is existence. And from now on, instead of saying the word God, I will say the word existence, because God has been made into a weapon. Existence. I'm going to say that, okay? Because you can see existence as a weapon if you want, and you can see it as the most blissful blessing, okay? So existence will present you with awareness of existence, okay? And you can engage with that, and you can discuss it, and you can explain it to other people, and it can come in the form of an angel or an alien or a demon or whatever. It's all existence bringing you things for you to consider.
Rattled off. I've got to stop you there. You rattled off things that were, you know, you could have said elves and unicorns for all I care with that list that you just gave.
Yes.
But I thought you were going to list things that were like, you know, when I go out and smell the fresh air, when I hear the birds chirp in the morning, when I wake up, these things are amazing. Just being is amazing. Whereas the people who look for the unicorns, you're not really experiencing the wood for the trees or whatever, you know, whatever rubbish phrase you can chuck in there. You know, but life is sweet is the way I would put it, rather than saying you can experience that through angels and demons. Life is literally sweet.
It is. So you can, if you choose to look at horrifying images, you will put horrifying images and your experience of seeing horrifying images in your field of existence. If you choose to wake up and think, it's another day in this mysterious realm we call life, then that's a different point of view. All of it is.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So this is what existence is bringing you. Now, there are people there to try to stop you from realizing that you exist.
That was where I was going to go next, actually, because again, before the show started, when we were getting the notes together for this, we detailed the two different types of people, and you kind of used the example of somebody who's discovered fire, and I don't know which example is better. I used the example of somebody, maybe yours is better because mine's caught in another paradigm. I'll use mine first, then you can use yours afterwards. So you've got the type of guy who knows that it's difficult to keep track of time, and he's got a couple of choices when he comes up with his design for his clock. He can either put it on the top of a tall tower and everyone gets to see it for free, or he can keep it in a nice closed little metal box and show it to people for money and make a profit of his little invention. Now, which is the more righteous? Well, it's probably a better example because both are caught up in the current paradigm of the control system and how time works. Something else that we're looking at, you know, how our calendar works and how the moons are tracked and how that is our actual calendar. Well, the clock and the mechanisms and the workings of, we're having a bit of a scratch at that recently as well. So to say that the guy who looks at taking the control system and making a profit of it rather than just offering it up, both are of the same coin, ironically, and both should be tossed away. So I think your example's better with fire, so maybe you should give yours.
No. I actually think the two examples are really good as two different sides of a chocolate coin, okay, that you can actually consume if you want. So you've got the mechanic who can make a watch and sell it, or the one that can build a town watch. What's actually going to happen is the guy who makes a town watch for everybody to enjoy, he's not going to go around knocking on doors because he's heard somebody chinking away, making a tiny little watch that he can sell. Okay, that's not going to happen. What will happen is the guy who's making little watches to sell, he's going to find the guy who's going around giving people time for free, and he's going to put poison in his drink. Okay, because otherwise he's not going to get to sell as many watches. My example was that we have two types of Homo sapiens. The one who discovers how to make fire and is almost delirious with the thought of finding people to show how to make fire. That way everybody can keep themselves warm. And you have the kind of Homo sapiens that discovers how to make fire and is almost delirious with the thought of how much he will gain from this. It's the same kind of Homo sapiens. The first is the clockmaker for the town, and the second is the watchmaker. And we're not saying that all watchmakers are evil, okay? Not like we're not saying all religious people are evil or nothing like that. But with this fundamental types of humans, we know Tesla came around, and the reason he didn't make everything 100 times better than it is now is that he was the kind of guy who would show for free. This is why he had the patent for the radio stolen and given to Marconi, which, if anybody has looked, is the same patent, only it's got the receiver switched round. That's all it is. It's the same. And Marconi was Tesla's assistant, by the way, at the time that Tesla patented the radio. So anyway, that's a different one. But this two kinds of beings, one which will help others for free, the kind of person who will say from the heart, then the next time I'm troubled, I'm going to use this lesson from the last time that I was troubled. And I can see that you're troubled, and I'm going to tell you my lesson about being troubled and what I'm going to do. And you have the guy who's going to write it down and say, this is what you do, but you better be troubled. Otherwise, you won't be able to use this. And if you don't use this, oh, there'll be trouble. This is the difference between the two. One wants to gain and the other doesn't. And if we want to look at the richest principality, it's the Vatican, unfortunately for Catholics. It's the Vatican. It's not Mecca. So do we want to say, are those people doing things for free, or do those people want to gain? And I don't want to veer off into that. All I'm saying is we have politicians and propaganda and television and mainstream external world, and we have internal world traps too. Now, the paradigm shift comes from realizing, hold on a second, my consciousness is increasing. I'm becoming conscious of a much broader scope of things than before. Talk to your parents and see what things they are conscious of. And you'll see there the ripples of their consciousness are in a pretty narrow pond. And you have people now whose ripples of consciousness are much wider reaching. So, for instance, Bob from Globebusters, the ramifications, the range, the radiation that the ripples will reach is really wide. Now, those in the center can get the highs and lows, or can feel the actual rise and fall, and those on the outer limits would just notice a tiny little perturbance, okay? But this doesn't mean that those outside who are only noticing a tiny little perturbance lose the benefit of being right by the center where the pebble was dropped. They can cause their own ripples by their deeds, and this goes back to the deeds rather than the inherent significance that we all perceive we have. We all have inherent significance. Our deeds demonstrate to us our relationship with the world. This is a paradigm.
Come forward one. So before we get there, we've got to get to our actual ability to question things in the first place.
Yes. So we have the New Age. Do we question the age? Oh, New Age.
Which is a phrase that makes me cringe, because it's true, it's apt, but it's ridiculed. It's another term that gets bandied around by New Agers. So it's not a great term, but it is so descriptively accurate.
So let's look at some of the New Age things. Transcendental meditation. What does this do? It makes you peaceful. Does it do anything else? Yeah. It makes people around you peaceful. Does that do anything else? Yeah. It increases the level of peace experienced by human or Homo sapien consciousnesses. That's what it does. That's what Gregorian chants do. They bring peace. There's this element of meditation, of contemplation. Now, some can call the other New Agey, the other can call the some New Agey, because let's face it, of the two, the one that's going to be considered New Agey is the Gregorian chants. They've only been around for a few hundred years. The other one's been around for thousands. But the point is, we have this criticism, this assault, this normal response, a normalized reaction to people who question things. So one of the things that is done is labels are set. So you're labeled a New Ager or a Satanist. So, and I'm not saying there's nothing to the term Satanist. Yes, there is. The same as there's something to the term priest, Catholic priest. There's something there too. But you get labeled, okay? So the reason for the labeling is to point out New Aginess means evil, means thelema, means Illuminati, New World Order, all of these things. Like, no. We're talking about questioning whether there's any validity to any of those terms. Thelema, New World Order, Illuminati, all of those things. Because the reason for saying, let's not look at New Age is to remain in the age that we're at. Now, the age that we're at is one where, without extenuating factors, the result is idiocracy. That's the natural point at where the downscaling of IQ and abilities will reach the point of idiocracy, where people's lives are dedicated to video games, to a very limited circle of friends, to not spending time with their intellectual superiors so that you can try to elevate your intellect. You're not going to elevate your intellect by surrounding yourself with people whose intellect is lower than yours. Just like you're not going to improve
another way, by watching X Factor.
Yes, or you're not going to improve your martial arts skill by training with people who are not as good as you. You're only going to improve by training with people who are much better than you. That's how you're going to improve. So with this criticism of New Age comes this unconscious calling for remaining in this age. Now, one of the poisons of the society we have now, one of the fears comes, like we said, from the propaganda, which keeps you at that state of anxiety from the one side, and also from religion keeping you at that state. You better not do something wrong or you burn forever. What if the thing you're praying to is Satan and not God? What if? All of those things are to keep you in this state of fear. This state of fear tells you, don't look into things that will change. Let's keep things at this point. And the reason for being at this point, the reason we are at this point, is not human ingenuity. It's murder and genocide, the reason we're at this point. If we'd been riding on the crest of human ingenuity, we would be light years, if that was a real thing, ahead. If we were using human ingenuity, we would not have had bloodshed, but we did have bloodshed at the hands of the same people that engaged with the same propaganda. The bad guys, if we want to call them that, who are literally bad guys and gals. Let's not just say it's just the one half of the gender, okay? Bad people. There are people who do not show others how to make fire, who do not build a clock for the town.
Well, I've got a note down here. I'm not exactly sure because it was towards the end when I was scribbling stuff down. But behaviour maps. Is that
Yes.
Along this subject line, or have I scribbled that down in the wrong place?
Yeah, no, that's cool. So this is the thing with by calling things New Age, or by saying no, we can't question our religion. We can't question the actual fundamentals of our religion. No, we can question our religion within the parameters that our religion says we can question it within.
And I'm going to say at this point that religion includes heliocentric belief,
science, mathematics. So religion is a thing that you do not look to see whether it is actually valid.
Yeah, dogma.
Not. Yeah. So this map, we have this, the way we behave towards the world serves as a kind of metaphorical map for other people. So people who would say things like, I didn't know I could do that. The reason they're saying that is that they've just seen somebody else doing something they didn't know they could do, wouldn't contemplate trying because it just wasn't within their field of experience or within the reach of their imagination. So somebody goes and does something, it's like, huh, never thought of that. Okay. And it's the same as people saying, huh, I didn't know I could go that way to Australia, like literally in a straight line. Okay, you go through mountains and stuff, but not, no, well, straight is actually curved. It's like, no, the flat earth says, no, it's a freaking straight line from this point to that point. So this questioning of
Oh, Christ. Okay. I've got to now jump in because you've just said a whole bunch of stuff that a whole bunch of people who are watching may have no idea what you're talking about. Right. So based on the fact that we have magnetic lines that surround our flat plane, these magnetic lines have been curved around a ball in order to convince us that we live on a ball. Now, when you realize that that's a fact and we have been deceived, we do definitely live on a flat plane, you are still left with these curved magnetic lines. And we use these to travel around. We use compasses. We don't dead reckon. Now, in order to do this, we would use gyroscopics to dead reckon, to literally fly as the crow flies, if you want to call it that way, in a straight line, ignoring the curved lines of magnetism. And that would give you a literal shortcut. In other words, it would be a shorter distance from point A to point B if you dead reckon you use gyroscopics rather than magnetism in order to navigate. So that's just a bit of clarity to those slightly jumbled words that Antonio gave. Sorry to interrupt, Antonio.
That's okay. So we're talking about behavior acting as a compass almost, or as a map for other people. So, I didn't know I could do that, you know. I didn't know I could go that way. So an example, shopping mall. I think most of us have been in a shopping mall, have been unfortunate enough to be in a shopping mall. Some of us unfortunate enough to work in shopping malls. You're in a shopping mall, they have a map of the shopping mall. You're at point A, it tells you where you are, and you want to go to a shop, okay? This thing called a shop is over here, and it tells you the route for you to take. There's another route, which means you can go upstairs and kind of generally navigate your way to the same point, okay? Or downstairs, same thing. But it doesn't tell you this map. As long as you stay within the our age that we're in now, not new age, our age, you're going to follow that map's route from this point to that point, okay? The map is not going to say, it's not going to display, and it's not going to signpost the things that people who work in that area know, which is there are respite areas for the workers. These are courtyards open to the air. You get there through doors that say personnel only. They're not locked with a keypad. You just push them open.
So I used to work at Harrods, and as you go into Harrods, you are corralled to walk through all of the different concessions that are in Harrods and then go to a different floor. And if you happen to just know what floor you want to go on, you still won't find the way to the concession easily. You'll still have to navigate your way through all the different concessions. But as a staff member, you knew that on the ends of the main 3 sets of stairs with the escalators, one of which was very gaudy and had all sorts of golden Egyptian stuff on it. Anyway, between them, there was these, as you say, marked personnel only, separate like corridors that would span off, and you could very easily cut around to any concession in next to no time and get around like you'd get around a house. And in fact, those corridors almost looked like they were in houses. You know, they had dado rails and wallpaper, as opposed to being decorated with all the different commercialized nonsense that you had in Harrods. But when you went through, you could literally zip your way around in a few minutes. But as a customer, it'd take you an eternity to get around there. You'd be trapped in there if you walked around as a punter. It was unreal how much time people could lose just walking through Harrods.
Yeah. So, and even if one of these wandered into one of these corridors, the corridors I'm familiar with are breeze block, no plaster, just breeze block, no signs saying this way to that place or this way to that place. When you get to the courtyard and there's a smoking shelter, there's no this is a door to that general area, or none of this. You just know if you try it, if you walk. But to the person in our age, all they see is an individual going through a door, and they assume, oh, that door must lead to Lucifer, okay? Or that door must lead to a warehouse. There's no point me going in there because I'll probably need some kind of pass or something. And if what am I going to do with whatever it is I get from there? You know.
All right, I've got another example. We talked about this before the show, but nothing to do with the show. So when I was driving back from Germany, I'd driven for hours and hours and hours all the way across Europe, gone under the tunnel, got to the M25 and was trapped on it. And right next to me, in this long string of traffic that I've been for 2 hours, there's a slip road that says patrol vehicles only. Well, I sat there looking at it thinking, I could just drive on that and I'd be home free. And eventually I thought, I am going to drive on that. And I did. And there was no issue, you know, there was nothing stopping me. Admittedly, if there'd have been a police car on there, I'd have probably got in trouble. But ultimately, you know, I wasn't trapped with everyone else for another 4 hours. I got home. Admittedly, when I did get home, I got a ticket for speeding in the last 2 miles of the journey. But that's not the point either. You know, the point is, you know, there was another map. There was another way of doing something. It was just marked as patrol vehicles. Well,
and your ticket did not come from traveling along that patrol vehicles only area.
No. That was like 100 miles before the end of the journey. I mean, the end of the journey was like 18 hours into a very long journey, and I was, you know, probably looking drunk with the way I was driving by then.
Everybody you drove past on that patrol only lane will have thought, definite cop, undercover cop. I wonder what he's doing. Wonder where he's going. That's what they will have thought, because you're on that police only lane or patrol only lane. Therefore, you must be. And this is what people think. These guys are looking into New Age, or these guys are New Age. They must be going to and from to the devil and bringing things from the devil. It's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. This doorway that this employee has gone through in this shopping mall doesn't go to hell. It goes to an area of respite. And through that door, they can find a different door to an area you don't know how to get to from here. You have to go and look at a map. And you're going to go all around the houses to get to that point. So the way these aren't signposted or labeled, okay, to make it difficult for people to figure out. The employees themselves have to figure them out. They're not going to just, you know, take out of their 15-minute break, wander around for the whole 15 minutes.
So we've gone off on like quite a few tangents now. So how does this relate to the viewer?
Okay, so this is how it goes. Your behavior acts as a map for other people to navigate their way through life. You can carry on saying to people, keep your head down, don't look up, and that's what they'll do. Or you can start looking up, or you can start stopping. You know, you can stop. You can say, actually, I'm not going to pay the taxes. I'm going to see what happens. So you end in prison. Fine. If your integrity is good because you're in prison because you didn't pay taxes to pay for bullets to kill people, then freaking go for it. Or move or do something, but your behavior is going to act as a map for others. This is the main point. The paradigms that we have are ones where your behavior is dictated by your schooling, your background, your class, your nationality, your religion, and all of these things which are not there for your benefit. They're not your own structures. They're basically given to you. You're shown how to do them. You're ordered. This is the thing. Remember, we were talking about normality. So normality is this lack of conscious existence, this existing unconsciously, like Orwell's orthodoxy being unconsciousness. And this unconsciousness has made what we call normal, actually correctly would be the term retarded. Retarded has a real meaning. And it means slowed from its natural flow or growth. So normality.
The media buzzspin for that is dumbed down.
Yes, dumbed down, but it actually means slowed. Its rate of progress slowed. retarded. It comes from, you know, it's where the word tardy comes from, late. It means being slowed or being even stopped. Okay, so what we call normal, mainstream, this age, is literally retarded. And now that people have realized that they can run, they don't have to walk. Other people are going, oh, what's that person doing running? Oh, it must be some kind of emergency. And no, this is what I'm saying. It's behavior that dictates. And we have this following of norms. The word norm and normal, the word norm comes from rule. It comes from policy. You follow the norms. You follow the order, not order as opposed to chaos, but order as emblematic or symbolic of command.
So what about orthodoxy?
Orthodoxy, it means following. It means following without veering, which is basically you have a command. You do not veer. So you follow without veering. That's what orthodoxy is. An orthodox boxer is a kind that boxes with his left hand forward. An unorthodox, right hand forward. The unorthodox is just a term, but it means he doesn't follow the norm. The norm is left hand forward. And look at how the church has ordered what is normal. Children who are naturally left-handed, they spend a long time coaxing them to learning to write with their right hand. The Latin or the Hispanic word for left-handed is the word sinister. That means left-handed, doesn't follow, isn't the same as. You are sinister. And there's meaning to words. Words are spells. The term new age is derogatory. It means new, unknown, maybe fall flat on your face, maybe devil waiting for you. This new age. Nobody says, hold on, are you saying the new age is opposed to an old age? Or what is it that you're saying? Say, no, never mind the questions. Just take this. The norm is you take that and you repeat it without introspection and without any contemplation. You just do what you're told. Now, all the flat earthers are iconoclasts. We break rules. We break idols. Some have idols they're not prepared to break. And that's totally fair enough. But they're not. It's not so fair enough for them to kind of demand, insinuate, and imply that unless you pick up those idols too, you are sinister. There's something wrong with you. You mean you want to do the opposite of what my religion wants me to do, which is help out. Okay, it's like, no, you're following a norm, and we're saying there are ways of helping out without following your norm. So this is the fear element. We go back to the fear, you know. So let me just check something. So I'm getting into the end of what I wanted to say. If you want to,
I was going to say, because this is the first time we've done this show, and prior to the show, thanks for everyone hanging around before the show because we were running a bit late. But we've actually done notes, and we've got it nice and concise. You know, it's normally a couple of hours. I think it's been an hour and a half. Great, my kind of show, Antonio. You know what I mean?
Cool. So let's just kind of what's the term to
round up?
Recap. Okay. We're at a point of a paradigm shift. We are in the middle of a paradigm shift. And because we're used to stable, there are people who feel off kilter. The Mayans said at this point, some people will lose their minds because the mind's pointing one way and the consciousness, the divine consciousness, is going to make them point the other way, whether they want to or not. they're free to relax and let their minds be pointed along the direction the divine consciousness wants them to point, or they can fight it. Ultimately, they will point the same way, because
And we can give a nice example of that, a very specific example with flat Earth. Whether people like it or not, the Earth is flat.
Exactly, and people can deny to look at the proof, refuse that the proof works. Now, talking about the horizon, then ships going over the curve. Now, globally say, no, that's not fair. You can't use that argument. You can't say that the argument on which we based curvature on the y-axis, you can't use that.
Wow, why not, instead of going through your details about this, why not plug your debate that you're having?
Yes, I'm having a debate this coming Saturday with Flat Earth Math. It will be on Antonio Subirats Strikes Back, my other channel. And it will be moderated by Nathan Oakley, who won't be there for any reason other than to make it comfortable for Charles, Flat Earth Math. To keep things ticking over nicely and fluidly, so that there's no objection. Hey, you spoke for 5 minutes, said Antonio, 4 minutes in. Oh, 7 minutes in, whatever. It's to keep it flowing nicely, okay? This is this coming Saturday. We haven't arranged the time yet. I'll set it up as soon as we arrange the time.
Most likely a similar time to this show, though, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. So we're in the middle of a paradigm shift. People are losing their minds for various different reasons. Some people are losing their minds because suddenly they're thrust into a position where they have a lot of attention put on them. They get a high, the attention moves on to the next person that the attention is being paid to. They go into a low and they kind of crash, and then whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody's generally going to be all right, because guess what, people? At the end of it, what happens is you die. That's the end. You die. Oh my God. So let's not worry too much, and let's not have too much fear. Now, the paradigm that we're in...
I'm going to add to that, because you might think, oh, that's really gloomy. Wrong. When you are being manipulated, I said this earlier, they use death for a very specific reason. It works on that primeval part of your brain. It increases your anxiety. So to make light of it is to kind of rob that tool of its power. And it has a huge amount of power. It's the same as sex. We are primeval in terms of our thoughts about keeping ourselves alive, progressing. That's it. That's what we want to do. Don't die. That's basically what we don't want to do. So when we see stuff about death, it really does work on us. So to make light of it is not to make people think, oh no, he's talking about death. It's more to rob that of its power. Am I right in saying that, Antonio? I'm assuming that's why you did that in a jovial way.
Totally. And apart from anything else, because it's true. Okay, so here's one of the things that I wanted to cover. So we have truth. We can acquaint ourselves with truth. We can arm ourselves or make armor out of truth, out of knowledge, not belief. Belief is going to be an armor that cuts you. Okay, so make yourself an armor out of knowledge. So with knowledge comes understanding of truth. When you understand truth, you understand things like, well, death is inevitable. Yeah, everybody knows that. Yes, everybody knows that. It's inevitable. Don't fear the inevitable. That's a silly thing to fear. The end of this experience as a human being, the end of this adventure, is not the end of the book, of your story. So let's put that to the side. We're in a paradigm shift where people are understanding the earth is actually flat. These mechanisms, these instruments have been put in place to keep us locked, have said to us, look at what cool technology you have. Don't pay attention to the fact that right now there are people dying because of the same mechanisms that brought this cool equipment and computers and stuff. Don't pay attention to the fact you're living in land that was taken by force from other people who were murdered. Don't pay it. Right now, we're at a point where people are realizing this.
They push these paradigms. So they do it with cars. So they will sell people the wonderful Prius, this green car, save the planet. Anyway, then they will tell you, once they've sold a whole shitload of them, that actually they're very, very bad for the planet. They, refining all of these materials over here, mining them over there, sending them over here, and the boats that send them are burning. They just introduce new paradigms, and that's pretty much what you've just done.
What do you mean?
Well, you've just described the whole things that are in opposition to each other.
Yeah. So, well, this is the my closing statement.
Yeah, I'm trying to round it up.
Yeah. So this is my closing statement. We're in a paradigm shift, and if you want, you can rile against it, and you're going to lose. Okay. It's the same as if you wanted to rile against inevitable death. You're going to lose. Death is going to win at the end. Okay. Well, we're not really talking about death. We're talking about the experience of being a Homo sapiens, the experience of being a conscious thing that exists in this realm. This thing, the stage that we're in now, we have to become conscious of things. If you don't become conscious, you're going to become conscious of things, okay, whether you want to or not. And things like things that are unpalatable, things that are uncomfortable, things you don't want to, things for which you will seek unconsciousness and watch television rather than face certain truths. But those truths aren't there to trap you or to bring you down. Those truths are there to liberate you so that you can embrace this paradigm, because by embracing the paradigm, you're sending a karmic apology for the fact that you have been living as a result of murder and genocide. You need to send this karmic apology. Pretending it's not true is wrong. If you want to do the right thing, you need to send an apology. You need to apologize for your history. You need to apologize for the nature of humans around you, your own nature. You need to apologize for the pollution, the destruction, because by apologizing, you start the healing. And this organism or system that we live in wants you to succeed. It wants you to be happy. It wants you to gain experience, to make you, to improve. It wants you to. It's patient. It's freaking eternally patient, as far as I can see. It gives all the opportunities for people to learn. And that's what I'm saying. We're in a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift is one, not of escaping the globe or this pond, but of escaping the kind of karmic suffering, the stress, the anxiety that is ancestral. And the way to basically free ourselves from that and see that it's a garden out there is by simply acknowledging that an apology is owed from you sincerely for anything that you might have benefited from unknowingly. That starts the healing of the organism to which you're integral.
Booyah.
Booyah.
Well,
That's it.
That's pretty much it. Well, I'm going to say a big thank you to Antonio Subirats for airing his superb thoughts this evening. Thank you very much, Antonio.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
And thank you to everybody who's watched and been chatting away quite happily in the chat. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.